Yes. Remember yesterday, we reported that they were both at the Invictus Games opening ceremonies, but 18 seats apart.
I want people to be inspired. I want tears.
Here we go. Coming to terms with life-changing injuries, and finally trying to keep up with 12 wounded veterans on our way to the South Pole.
Meghan Markle's trying to make her big comeback at the Invictus Games. There's just one problem. Nobody wants her there. Not the palace, not the veterans, not even the family. Here's the thing, when Meghan shows up to honor wounded warriors, somehow it always ends up being about her. And after years of turning every event into a personal PR moment, the doors are finally closing. But she's not giving up, and the drama that's unfolding behind palace walls, it's messier than anyone expected. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and smash the like, because what's coming involves Netflix deals, veteran pushback, and a royal family that's had enough. You won't want to miss this. Let's get into it. So here's what's been going down. Meghan's been working overtime trying to secure her spot at the next Invictus Games. We're talking media appearances, high-profile engagements, heartfelt speeches about veterans and the importance of honoring those who serve. She's been putting in the hours, reaching out to people, making calls, doing everything she can to be there.
Meghan Markle's fashion choices at the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver seamlessly blended elegance.
On paper, it sounds great, right? Supporting wounded warriors, standing by Harry's project, showing up for a good cause. But there's a problem. Every single time Meghan's attended these games in the past, something weird happens. The focus shifts. Instead of headlines about the incredible athletes competing, instead of stories about veterans overcoming unimaginable challenges and finding purpose through sport, we get articles about what Meghan wore, what designer she picked, what time she left the venue, whether she was holding Harry's hand or not, how she styled her hair. It's like the entire event transforms into the Meghan show. And the people who actually matter, the wounded warriors who trained for months to compete, they end up as background extras in her story. Listen, the games were created for one reason: to honor servicemen and women who gave everything for their countries, to give them a platform, celebrate their strength, and show the world that their lives didn't end when they got wounded.
It is such an honor to be here tonight, celebrating all of you and supporting my husband in the Invictus Game.
That there's purpose and healing and pushing yourself, competing, being part of something bigger. But when she's around, that message gets buried. Fashion moments and photo ops take center stage instead of the athletes who poured their hearts into being there. The cameras point at her, not them. The articles write about her outfit choices, not their comeback stories. And people notice. The veterans notice when someone's making it about themselves. The organizers notice when the mission gets overshadowed. Even the crowds notice when the energy shifts from celebration to celebrity watching. Because when you're supposed to be honoring someone else's sacrifice, when you're there to support people who've been through hell and back, and it somehow turns into a personal branding opportunity, things start feeling wrong. The whole vibe changes. Suddenly, it's all about who can get the best camera angle, who's trending on social media, what's going viral. And here's the thing that really gets people. Meghan talks a good game. She gives these speeches about how much she cares. How honored she is to be there, how deeply she respects the veteran community. The words sound right, but then the next day, the headlines aren't about what she said or the veterans she met. They're about her $200 coat or the hug she gave someone or the moment she teared up on camera. It's like there's this disconnect between what the event's supposed to be and what it actually turns into. The intention might be there, but the result keeps being the same pattern over and over. Now let's talk about what actually happens at these events. Go back and look at Meghan's previous appearances at the Invictus Games. What were the headlines? What did people talk about? Not the competition, not the inspiring comeback stories, or the athletes pushing through pain to compete. Nope, the headlines were all about her. What designer dress she chose. The exact moment she decided to leave early. Close-up shots of her and Harry holding hands or kissing.
Said you would be moved, inspired, and entertained. Was I right?
Every single article turned into a breakdown of her fashion choices, her hair, her makeup, her body language. The athletes who spent months training, who overcame injuries that would have broken most people, they barely got mentioned. Their stories got pushed to the side because everyone was too busy analyzing what Meghan wore and how she wore it. The pattern keeps repeating itself. An event meant to celebrate wounded warriors turns into another episode of celebrity watching, and the actual purpose of the games gets lost in all the noise. But here's where it gets even more frustrating. Take Remembrance Day, for example. This is when people pause to honor those who've passed away in service. Wearing a poppy is the most basic way to show respect. It's a simple gesture that means everything to the military community. But what did Meghan do? She went out without one. No poppy, just out there living her life while others were taking a moment to remember. And people noticed, veterans noticed, the military community noticed. You can't claim to care deeply about servicemen and women one day, give emotional speeches about how much they mean to you, and then skip the most basic gesture of respect when it actually matters.
Can't have Harry stealing my thunder. Gotta get in here done. Now it's time to push away from this.
It doesn't add up. Either you're committed to honoring these people or you're not. And when someone picks and chooses which moments to show up for, based on what gets them the most attention, that's when people start questioning whether any of it's real. Is it about the cause, or is it about being seen supporting the cause? Because those are two very different things. Every event she touches seems to follow the same script. Show up looking perfect, say the right words, get the photos, and then the next day, it's all about her instead of the people she claimed to be there for. The veterans see it. They know when someone's genuine and when someone's performing. And after enough times watching the spotlight shift away from their stories and onto someone else's wardrobe choices, they start to feel like props in someone else's narrative. Like they're just there to make her look good, to give her a backdrop for her brand. And that's not what the Invictus Games were ever supposed to be about. Now, here's where things get really interesting. While all this Invictus drama's brewing, Harry decides to take a trip to Canada. Nothing unusual about that, right?
And established for the first time this year by Britain's Prince Harry. The fourth in line to the British throne took part in some events himself.
Except for one tiny detail, the timing. His Canada trip just happened to land at the exact same time William was in Brazil for a major climate event. What are the odds? So Team Sussex comes out with their explanation. They say the trip was planned almost a year in advance. Security concerns meant they couldn't announce it earlier. The timing was locked in because it was tied to remembrance events with fixed dates. They made it sound like this was all just a big coincidence, like Harry had no control over when it happened. Just bad luck that it overlapped with William's schedule. That's the story they went with, and they expected everyone to just accept it. But this is what makes the whole thing messy. Palace staff had no clue this trip was happening. Zero warning. They were completely caught off guard when the news broke. And this matters because Harry supposedly agreed a while back to keep the palace in the loop about his schedule. Basic coordination stuff, right? Just a heads up so everyone knows what's going on and nobody's stepping on each other's toes.
Incredibly false.
Simple courtesy. Yet somehow, nobody at the palace got the memo. No email, no phone call, no advance notice, nothing. Royal aides were sitting there finding out about Harry's Canada trip the same way the rest of us did, through the media. And when they started asking questions, trying to figure out who was told what and when, the answers got really vague really fast. Team Sussex went quiet. No clear response about who they supposedly informed or when they did it. Get this, though. While Harry's in Canada for this big veteran dinner, supposedly honoring servicemen and showing support, he ends up having to apologize. Not for missing the coordination with his family, not for the timing confusion. No, he apologizes to the entire country of Canada for wearing a Los Angeles Dodgers hat to a Blue Jays game. That's what made headlines. Not the veterans he was there to support, not the meaningful work happening at the event, a baseball cap. The whole thing turned into another round of he said,
but Harry said he doesn't mind at all falling down the ranks. His duty lies elsewhere. and spearheading these games.
They said people close to the palace were calling the situation shady, questioning the whole timeline. Meanwhile, the Sussex team stuck to their story but couldn't provide clear answers when pressed. And honestly, this just became another example of the same pattern playing out again. What should have been a straightforward veteran support trip turned into confusion, mixed messages, and questions about coordination that never got solid answers. The focus shifted from the actual cause to the drama surrounding it. Sound familiar? Instead of highlighting the true patriot love dinner or the veterans being honored, everyone was discussing whether Harry told his family, whether the timing was intentional, and why a simple schedule coordination turned into such a mess. The veterans took a back seat to the Sussex drama once again. So, while all this is going down, word starts spreading about another project Meghan's got in the works, a Netflix documentary. Now, if you've been paying attention to the Sussex playbook,
It is such an honor to be here tonight, celebrating all of you and supporting my husband in the Invictus Games.
you know how this goes. The tell-all format, the victim and hero narrative rolled into one. Meghan positioning herself as someone who's been through so much but still stands strong, still fights for what's right, still lends a helping hand to those in need. The documentary was supposed to showcase her journey, her struggles, her triumphs, classic streaming content stuff, but this is where it gets interesting. Whispers started going around that she wanted to extend this documentary to include the Invictus Games. Think about that for a second. Taking an event that's meant to be about wounded warriors finding healing and purpose and turning it into content for a streaming platform, making it part of her personal story instead of letting it be what it's always been, a celebration of veterans. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with documenting important events, but there's a difference between honoring something and using it as a backdrop for your own narrative. The Invictus Games weren't created to be reality TV.
Palace isn't just whispering tonight, it's boiling, trembling, practically vibrating with chaos. And all of it circles back to one woman whose world has just shattered.
They weren't designed to be part of someone's streaming deal or personal brand building. Harry started these games to give veterans a platform, to show the world that their journey didn't end with their injuries, that they could compete, push themselves, find community and purpose through sport. But once you start filming it for a documentary that's centered around your own story, once you bring in production crews and turn athlete moments into content, something fundamental changes. It stops focusing on them and starts focusing on the story you're trying to tell. The veterans become characters in your narrative instead of the main focus. Their comebacks, their struggles, their victories, they all get filtered through whatever angle the documentary's pushing. And people aren't having it. The royal family wasn't interested in seeing the games turned into streaming fodder. The veteran community didn't want their stories packaged up as content for someone else's Netflix deal.
What are you hoping people watching? It's on ESPN. It's here at Disney World. What are you wanting people to come away?
Because at the end of the day, these are real people with real struggles. They're not actors. They're not there to help someone build their brand or boost their streaming numbers. They're there because the games mean something to them. Because competition gave them purpose when they needed it most. Because being part of that community helped them heal. Turning that into a documentary subplot, making it part of a bigger tell-all story about Meghan's life and challenges, it misses the entire point. The games aren't about her. They never were. And the pushback against this Netflix angle wasn't people being difficult or closed-minded. It was people protecting what the games actually stand for. Protecting the athletes from becoming props in someone else's production. Making sure the focus stays where it belongs. On the veterans and their incredible journeys, not on whoever's filming them. Now let's talk about something that keeps coming up, the difference between how Meghan appears on camera versus what people experience when the cameras aren't rolling. On screen, she's got this perfect smile that seems to light up every frame, the carefully chosen words about how much she cares, how honored she is to be part of these causes, how deeply connected she feels to the work, the hand on the heart, the emotional pauses, the tear that appears at just the right moment. It all sounds and looks incredibly genuine in the moment. You watch it and think, wow, she really cares about this. But when you talk to people who've actually interacted with her at these events, a different picture starts to emerge. Veterans who've met her notice something off. They can tell when someone's actually interested in their story versus when someone's just going through the motions for the photo op. These are people who've been through real hardship. They've seen the worst of humanity and the best. They've learned to read people because their survival.
Prince Harry over which country will reign supreme during this year's games began way before the opening ceremony.
Sometimes depended on it, so they can spot a performance from a mile away. And what they're picking up on is that the care feels rehearsed, like she's hitting all the right notes because she knows what she's supposed to say, not because she's genuinely moved by their experiences. It's in the details they notice. The way her attention shifts when the cameras move, how the conversation changes when there's a photographer nearby versus when there isn't. The difference between a private moment and a public one. Veterans have mentioned feeling like they're part of a checklist. Meet veteran, check. Express concern, check. Get the photo, check. Move on to the next one. There's no real connection happening. No genuine curiosity about their journey. Just a series of performative interactions that look good on camera but feel hollow when you're the one standing there trying to share your story. There's this moment that really captures what we're talking about.
Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelly. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Let's take a look at Meghan Markle's
It happened during that infamous interview where Meghan and Harry were discussing their time in the royal family. Meghan starts talking about meeting the Queen for the first time, and she goes into this whole bit about how she didn't know she had to curtsy. She acts it out right there on camera, does this exaggerated, almost theatrical curtsy demonstration while explaining how shocking and bizarre it was that she was expected to do this formal gesture. The whole thing comes off as mocking the tradition, making fun of the formality of meeting the Queen, like it's some ridiculous, outdated custom that she couldn't believe was still a thing. And Harry just sits there, grinning, not uncomfortable, not trying to redirect the conversation or defend his grandmother, just going along with it, smiling like it's funny. This is his grandmother she's talking about, the woman who devoted her entire life to service, who took her role seriously for decades, who represented stability and duty for generations.
Because Invictus wasn't just a project. It was his heartbeat, his purpose, his healing, and now Meghan was
And his wife is sitting there making a joke out of meeting her, pretending she had no idea royal protocol was a thing. Acting like curtsying to the Queen of England was some bizarre surprise that nobody warned her about, like she walked into a situation completely blind. Come on. Anyone dating a prince knows that meeting the Queen comes with certain expectations. You don't accidentally end up in that situation without some preparation, without understanding what's expected. The idea that she was shocked by basic royal protocol doesn't hold up, but the way she tells the story, it's like she wants everyone to think the whole thing is absurd, that the formality, the tradition, the respect expected when meeting the monarch is all just silly theater. And that moment, that performance of the curtsy with the mocking tone, it showed a side that doesn't match the carefully crafted public image of someone who respects tradition and family. But that's the thing with the two faces issue. In public, at the right events, with the right people watching, everything looks perfect. The smile, the words, the gestures, they all fit what you'd expect from someone in her position. She knows how to work a room, how to say the right things, how to position herself for the best photos. But then these other moments slip through. The interview where the mask drops a bit and the real attitude shows. The events where veterans walk away feeling like they were just part of a publicity stunt rather than a genuine interaction. The times when respect for tradition takes a back seat to making a point or getting attention or scoring sympathy. People notice these contradictions.
Prince Harry. You see, this prince was...
They notice when someone claims to respect tradition and family while simultaneously mocking them in interviews watched by millions. They notice when someone talks about caring for veterans, but then turns their events into fashion shows and content opportunities. They notice when the private behavior doesn't match the public persona. When the things said behind closed doors contradict the image carefully maintained in front of cameras. And once you start seeing that pattern, once you recognize the performance for what it is, it's hard to unsee it. Every speech starts feeling a little more calculated. Every appearance starts looking a little more staged. Every tear feels a little more timed for maximum impact. The question becomes, what's real and what's performance? What's genuine caring and what's brand building? And for a lot of people watching, especially the veterans who've actually met her and walked away feeling used,
Yes.
rather than heard, the answer isn't flattering. They wanted to believe in her sincerity. They wanted to think someone with that platform actually cared about their stories. But experience taught them otherwise. And that disconnect between what she projects and what people actually experience when they interact with her, that's what keeps coming up over and over again. So, what's happening behind closed doors in Montecito while all this is playing out? Word is, things aren't exactly peaceful. Ever since the news broke that Meghan wasn't welcome at the Invictus Games, the tension in that house has been through the roof. We're talking serious arguments, the kind where you can feel the stress bleeding into everything else they do. Because this wasn't just about one event for Meghan. This was about access, relevance, staying connected to something that still carries weight. And she didn't just accept the decision and move on, not even close. Apparently, she went into full campaign mode, trying every angle she could think of to turn this around, calling people she thought might have influence, reaching out to friends who have connections to the veteran community.
I genuinely do not understand this at all whatsoever. Do you understand this?
Contacting family members who might be able to put in a good word, anyone she could think of who might help change things. She was working the phones, sending messages, doing whatever she could to get that door reopened. But get this, none of it worked. The friends couldn't help. The family members weren't interested in getting involved. The veteran contacts she reached out to, they weren't budging either. Every door she knocked on stayed closed. Every favor she tried to call in went nowhere. And that's got to be frustrating, right? When you're used to having influence, when you're used to your name carrying weight and opening doors, suddenly finding out that nobody's willing to step up for you, that's a hard pill to swallow. Think about what that means for someone who built their entire brand on visibility and relevance. Someone who's been fighting to stay in the spotlight since stepping away from royal duties. The Invictus Games weren't just another event on the calendar. They were one of the few remaining connections to the royal world.
Meghan Markle has been officially blocked from attending the Invictus Games, not as a guest, not as a speaker, and not even as Harry.
One of the last places where the Sussex name still meant something significant. Losing access to that, getting shut out of something Harry created, that's not just about missing one appearance. That's about losing ground in a bigger battle for staying relevant. And Harry's caught right in the middle of all this. On one side, you've got his wife pushing hard to be included, frustrated that her efforts aren't working, upset that doors are closing. On the other side, you've got the games he founded, the veteran community he cares about, and a family that's made it clear they don't want the drama that follows Meghan around. What's he supposed to do? Back his wife and risk further damaging his relationship with the games and the people involved? Or accept that maybe her presence isn't what's best for the event and deal with the fallout at home? That's an impossible position to be in. The games mean something to him. They're his legacy, his contribution, something he built from scratch that actually helps people. But his marriage means something too.
Here's a challenge. How do you capture 4 amazing days in sport an opening ceremony.
And when those two things are pulling in opposite directions, when supporting one means problems with the other, there's no easy answer. The stress of being torn between what he knows is right for the games and what keeps peace at home, that's gotta weigh on a person. So the fighting makes sense. The tension's understandable. Because this isn't just about one event anymore. It's about what happens when the doors start closing, when the influence starts fading, when the scrambling to stay relevant keeps hitting walls. And when you're stuck in a house in California, far from the family you used to be close to, watching opportunities slip away despite your best efforts to hold on to them, that pressure has to go somewhere. Usually it goes into arguments, stress, and a whole lot of frustration that doesn't have anywhere else to go. Meanwhile, back at the palace, there's a whole different strategy playing out. And it's not what you'd expect. William and Charles aren't making dramatic statements. They're not calling press conferences or issuing official responses.
It all starts with a whisper, one of those whispers that crawls across royal walls and somehow lands right in the middle of Montecito like a thunderbolt.
To every Sussex move. They're not even acknowledging most of what's happening publicly. Instead, they're doing something way more effective. They're just creating distance. Quiet, deliberate, consistent distance. No big announcements needed, no public confrontations, just a slow, steady pulling back that speaks louder than any statement ever could. The palace keeps functioning. Events keep happening. Royal duties keep getting done. And all of it happens without Harry and Meghan being part of the picture. The family's proving they don't need the Sussexes to do their job. Life goes on, work continues, and the machine keeps running smoothly without them. And William, he's done. Completely done with the surprise trips, the convenient timing, the PR stunts that keep dragging the family into tabloid drama, the coordination failures, Harry showing up at suspiciously perfect moments to steal headlines, the constant confusion about who knew what and when. All of it reinforces William's decision that enough is enough.
Of grueling competition and more smiles, tears, hugs and cheers than you could ever.
He's setting clear limits now. Hard ones, the kind that don't get walked back. Think about where these two brothers started. They were close, really close. Growing up in that world, dealing with everything they went through together, losing their mother the way they did, they had a bond that seemed unbreakable. But look at where they are now. The distance between them isn't just physical, it's everything. Trust is gone. Communication has broken down to basically nothing. The coordinated schedules that used to happen naturally now result in surprise trips and media confusion. William's become the stable one now, the reliable one, the brother who stayed and kept working even when things got tough. Harry's the opposite. Unpredictability follows him. Drama surrounds every decision. And for the palace, for William especially, that contrast has become impossible to ignore.
The palace walls are shaking tonight, and Meghan Markle is absolutely devastated. Sources close to the royal family have just dropped the most
One brother stayed and figured out how to make it work. The other walked away and keeps trying to have it both ways. The gap keeps growing because every move Harry makes seems to widen it further. The Canada trip during William's Brazil visit, the Invictus drama with Meghan, the constant back and forth about coordination and communication. Each incident adds another layer of mistrust, another reason for William to keep his brother at arm's length. It's not even about anger anymore. It's about protection. And the saddest part, Harry built the Invictus Games. That was his thing, his project, his way of making a real difference. But even that's getting complicated now because of everything else swirling around him and Meghan. The games that were supposed to be his legacy, his lasting contribution, they're having to navigate around the drama just to stay focused on their mission. William's watching his brother's own creation, having to distance itself from him. That's gotta hurt. But it's also just another sign of how far things have fallen. When the project you started has to work around you to function properly.
Meghan Markle has been officially informed she will not attend the Invictus Games. Not as a guest,
That says everything about where things stand. So here we are, full circle. A couple who walked away from royal life saying they wanted peace, privacy, and the freedom to live on their own terms. They talked about being suffocated by the spotlight, overwhelmed by the media attention, exhausted by the constant scrutiny that came with being part of the family. That was the whole reason for leaving, right? To escape all of that pressure and build something different, something quieter, something more authentic. A life where they could make their own decisions, focus on the causes they cared about, raise their kids away from the cameras and the judgment. That was the dream they sold everyone when they made their exit. But look at what's actually happened since then. The constant media appearances, the tell-all interviews where they aired private family matters to millions of viewers, the documentaries dissecting their royal experience, the high-profile events and strategic trips timed perfectly to grab headlines when other family members are in the spotlight.
You two handles there? Hey.
No.
Okay, let me know when we're clear on 4.
And you just keep your body weight back.
The book deals, the streaming contracts, the endless PR campaigns, the scrambling to stay visible, to remain relevant, to keep the Sussex brand trending and in the public eye. Everything they said they were running from, they've been chasing ever since with even more intensity than before. The peace and privacy they claimed to want, nowhere to be found. Instead, it's been a nonstop campaign to stay in the conversation, to keep people talking about them, to maintain influence in the very world they supposedly left behind. They wanted out of royal life, but couldn't let go of the royal connection. They wanted privacy, but kept giving interviews. They wanted to be left alone, but kept inserting themselves into situations that guaranteed attention. The contradiction has been obvious from the start, and now it's catching up with them in ways they probably didn't anticipate. And now the consequences of all that are playing out in real time. The invitations aren't coming anymore. The doors that used to open automatically because of their titles.
A new report says Prince Harry and Meghan Markle don't really like anything about each other. Let's discuss.
Because of their connection to the royal family, because of who they used to be, those doors are staying closed now. The veteran community that should have welcomed Meghan to Invictus with open arms, they don't want her there. They've seen what happens when she shows up, and they're choosing to protect their event instead. The palace that once tried to accommodate them, that bent over backwards, trying to find a way to make their half-in, half-out plan work, they've moved on. The family keeps functioning, the work continues, the events happen, and it all goes smoothly without Harry and Meghan being part of it. They're not being fought, they're not being publicly condemned or called out in statements, they're just being quietly left behind. And in some ways, that's worse than any public confrontation would be, because it means they're not even worth the energy of a response anymore. The palace has decided that engaging with their drama, responding to their moves, acknowledging their attempts to stay relevant, all of that just gives them what they want. Attention, headlines.
Hold on tight, because overnight, Prince Harry faces a brutal choice. Dominic Reed, the man who turned Harry's
a reason to feel important. So instead, the strategy is simple. Just keep moving forward without them. The palace isn't releasing statements or engaging in back and forth drama. They're doing something much simpler and much more final. They're letting silence do the work. They're letting time and distance speak for itself. No arguments needed, no public disputes, no he said, she said playing out in the media. Just quiet, consistent distance that grows a little more each month. Every month that goes by, the royal family gets more comfortable operating without the Sussexes in the picture. Every event that happens successfully without them shows they weren't as essential as maybe they thought they were.
I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to introduce someone.
The next thing I noticed, Meghan says,
the family they walked away from is showing it doesn't need them to survive. It's actually thriving. The boundaries are set without the constant drama and distraction. The bridge between him and Harry isn't just damaged or strained, it's pretty much gone. What used to be, and Williams made his position crystal clear without having to say much of anything, a close relationship between two brothers who went through everything together, who lost their mother and navigated that impossible grief side by side, who seemed inseparable for so many years, has been reduced to icy distance and shattered trust. Too much has happened, too many surprise trips and convenient timing, too many stunts that grabbed headlines at the expense of family dignity, too much drama that pulled focus away from the work that actually matters and turned everything into a media circus. There's no going back to what it was. William's watching all of this unfold, and he's made his choice. Protect what matters, focus on the work, don't let the chaos dictate the direction. His brother chose a different path, chose the drama and the attention and the constant scrambling for relevance.
I find that the community that Invictus is created and that the Bishop House has created And so I just had to spend a little bit more time getting.
And Williams decided he's not going to let that drag down everything he's trying to build. So the distance keeps growing. The communication stays minimal. The coordination that used to happen naturally between them doesn't happen at all anymore. And that's just how it is now. The games Harry built, the Invictus Games that were supposed to be his legacy, his lasting mark on the world, his way of making a real difference for veterans, they're moving forward too. But they're doing it without the circus that follows him and Meghan around. The veterans get to be the focus again. The athletes competing get to have their stories told without being background extras in someone else's PR strategy. The mission stays pure and focused because the distraction has been removed. The cameras can point at the people who deserve the attention.
Lean, Skinny Flare Jeans by Veronica Beard, and Heeled Boots by Stuart Weitzman. Her slate gray
instead of getting hijacked by celebrity moments and fashion commentary. And that's probably how it should be. The games were never supposed to be about Harry or Meghan. They were supposed to be about service, healing, and giving wounded warriors a platform to show their strength. So where does that leave the Sussexes? Sitting in their Montecito house, watching their influence fade, despite their best efforts to hold on to it, fighting behind closed doors because the reality isn't matching what they wanted or expected, calling people who can't help them, reaching out to connections that don't want to get involved, trying to force their way into spaces that have decided they're better off without the drama. The couple that wanted to break free from the royal family can't seem to let go of trying to stay connected to it. They want the freedom without the royal obligations, but they also want the prestige, the access, the platform that comes with being royal, and you can't have it both ways. The family, they've stopped trying to make it work, stopped bending over backwards to accommodate requests that never seem to end. They're not dealing with having their events overshadowed by Sussex stunts and surprise announcements anymore. They're just moving forward without them, shaping what comes next without Harry and Meghan in the picture. And every day that goes by, things look a little more solid, a little more stable, a little more focused on what actually matters. The era of the Sussexes being central to the royal story is over. They chose to leave, and now the family has chosen to let them stay gone. No drama needed, just quiet, permanent distance. And sometimes that says more than any statement ever could. What do you think about all this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.